that the scripture says, and God allowed or caused a evil spirit. I think, what's it say? What's the scripture say about it? God caused it. Well, let's see what it says, because someone would argue with me if I say allow and it says cause. Those are two completely different words.
I think it says sent, actually.
Sent. Okay.
I guess it depends on what translation.
Yeah.
But while you're looking that up, there's other scriptures that speak of a similar thing where a king, it said that God sent a lying spirit to a prophet, to someone to prophesy to someone that they would believe the wrong thing.
Yeah, it actually says it twice.
Right.
This is the first time I saw it. I think it's the first and the second time he actually tries to kill David.
Right.
Like he throws
Yeah.
something at him because he was singing. Because that's why he was brought there, because he found Pharaoh
Right.
being correct. He was singing to basically quiet those demons. That
Right.
was inside of him,
What's the
right?
scripture? Read it.
So it says, now the spirit of the Lord had left Saul, and an evil spirit sent from the Lord began to torment him.
Right. So now the Spirit of the Lord, so catch that. The Spirit of the Lord left Saul, and an evil spirit, it says, was sent. Huh?
Sent.
Uh-huh.
Sent from the Lord.
Uh-huh. Okay. Sent from the Lord. So now so there's a couple trends of thoughts here. Some of it has to do with the word selection by the person telling the story, recording it. Now you could say, what do you mean recording the story or the word? The Bible is the inspired word of God, every word and this and that. Well, you have to take the Bible has meanings, words have meanings, and the authors were human. So they're going to choose words, that was in their vocabulary. All right? So the one argument would be is that the author chose the word sent from the Lord, and he could have just as easily said allowed, or the Lord. Who is the Lord there? Does the author believe that, and this was much the case, that things that were out of a human's control were all the cause of God? Now, did you just hear what I said? Is that we have a tendency still to believe today that everything that is out of our control is, in this greater effect of things, it's God. Okay? And so there's that. If the author just attributes that, hey, this was in the spiritual realm, this was of a godly, divine, supernatural, spiritual nature, so all of it's God. How many times have you heard God is in control? Right? Almost everybody in this room has said that. So if God is in control, why are little children being raped? Why are missionaries poor and billionaire pedophiles get to have their own island if God is in control. You know? So, some of it is when we see something that's supernatural, we'll say God, but maybe you have to know a little bit more about the supernatural before, because you could dissect that. Okay? It goes back to the argument, well, if God is all-knowing and if God is all-powerful, why did he even create Lucifer? He had to have known that Lucifer would have risen up against him and turned into the devil and then ruined his creation and tempted Adam and Eve. Right? So why would God do anything like that? Okay? So, going back to the thing is, when you study the Bible, you have books of the Bible that are poetically written. Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Lamentations. Those are all the poetic books of the Bible. Meaning, just like poetry today, if a rapper gets up and he's rapping, he's going to select his words according to what rhymed with the last verse, the closest thing. And you'll get the meaning of the song, right? So in the Bible, you have some of that. You have authors, putting the word sent. Now, we haven't even looked that up. So you could look up the word in the Hebrew, because the Old Testament's written in the Hebrew, and see exactly what that word means. Sent. That's what the King James translated it as sent. It might actually have multiple meanings, that word. Okay? Huh?
I read the New American Standard Bible. Mine says tormenting spirit.
Right, but we're focused on sent, the word sent by the Lord. Like, why would God, this God, pure, loving God, send a demonic spirit?
Well, if I the tormenting spirit essentially brought David into Saul's life because they suggested that a musician would come in and maybe soothe the spirit, and so they suggested David, who had just recently been anointed king. So, and obviously God is in control and owns everything. So it's not so necessarily that he sent it or allowed, but ultimately it brought David into the picture. That's
Right.
kind of what that orchestrated.
Right. So, again, getting back to the word selection, if it was God's plan, as Matt said, if it was God's plan to exalt David, then the author, or any of us, could say, well, God did this. Because if Paul was still anointed and he was still flowing in his kingly anointing and he was still being visited by the Spirit of the Lord, then he wouldn't, no one would want him to be replaced. He wouldn't need to be replaced. You understand? But it was in God's plan, and it was also due to the disobedience of Saul himself, that he opened this door. The anointing was removed from off of his life, and that set in motion the next phase of God's plan. So the word sent there could mean that it was orchestrated by God. Okay? And so an author would say, well, he sent it. He orchestrated. Yeah, God orchestrated it. So now you're telling me God orchestrates evil? No, God knows what evil's going to do. He doesn't have to orchestrate it. Let me say this, and I'll say this again. Our sin has an automatic, instamatic, built in. It's baked in. It's there. When it says the wages of sin is death, you don't get to escape it because you think, I didn't drop dead when I did that. When I sinned. There's no escaping it. The wages of sin is death. It's automatic. Now, and again, that's part of the structure. That's part of it's automatic. God's not causing death. It's sin that causes death. Okay? But in one sense, because God is supreme, has he not he has power over death, you would say. But God limits himself to the rules of man. Man lives by rules. God lives by rules. You understand? You're all kind of looking at me like maybe I'm not making my point. The rules are the rules. Sometimes we forget that the rules are the rules. Sometimes we want to attach a personality to the rules. Like you said, it's not, the devil's really after me today. The devil's really harassing. No, it's your flesh. It's you. It's your mind. Your mind, one of the rules is your carnal mind is an enemy or has enmity against God. It's rebellious. That's part of the rules. Like if we tend to walk around thinking, I'm a good person. When you start thinking, oh, you're a good person, you're screwed. You've forgotten the rule. That there's a high, if you're thinking with your brain, there's a high likelihood that you're going to think wrong things, think things that are prideful. You're going to use that brain to try to survive and give yourself comfort. All of which are not part of God's rules. The command of God is take up your cross. That's the rule of God. That goes against every rule that you have in your subconscious. It goes against every rule that you're operating by, that your brain is functioning by, that your subconscious is functioning by. Your subconscious is running by the rules of running by the rule and the thought, and it's hardwired to think, let me make this easy. Let me make this comfortable. And then when it's not easy and it's not comfortable, we complain. That's not God's rule. God's rule said, take up your cross. Turn the other cheek. If they hated me, and I'm perfect, all Jesus did was go around, this is what it says. He went around doing good and healing the sick. And what happened to him? They crucified him. We go around serving ourselves, trying to make it easy and comfortable for us, and complain when we have to suffer a little bit, or if we have to go the second mile. I'm backing this kind of way up, saying that, you know, our brain, the way we like to look at things, is we like to say it's the devil, it's this, and we try to categorize negativity and say there's actually two trends of thoughts, because people would argue and say, well, if God allows or sends, or God is all powerful, and he would allow a child to be hurt, he would allow a plane to crash, he would allow starvation and everything like that, then I don't want to serve a God that's all powerful, all knowing, and wouldn't stop that kind of stuff. And then you have the flip side of it, a lot of Christians like us, or immature people that say, God is love, and I love God, and everything that happens that's negative is not God. That's wrong too. And it's wrong because our idea of what is negative isn't negative. Your idea of what's negative is because you have to suffer. It's discomfortable. It's you had to obey. Somebody has authority over you that is not perfect. And they said it the wrong way to you. They gave you an order, or they don't even know what they're talking about, or I have a better idea. Whatever it is, right? We have our way of looking at things, and anything that doesn't line up with that is then negative, complaint worthy. We're pumping the brakes. We don't want to do it, and we just are like, I don't see how God can be in this. So we read in the Bible, getting back to the question, so we read in the Bible where it says God sent a famine on the land. So now which camp are you in? Is God good, or is God the kind of God who would send a famine on the land? And we say, that's bad. God sent a fire, and it burned up this, and it destroyed that. Okay. So here's something you have to know about God. When he literally says, don't lean on your own understanding, trust in him, it's because his perspective is always right. Do you write that down? You got to stop thinking in terms, and this is why the rich young ruler comes up to Jesus and says, "Good master." And he stopped him right there and he said, "Time out. What's your definition of good? Do you even know what good is? I don't think you know what good is. You're using a term good and you don't know what good is. Or is it good according to you? Or is it good according to God?" Now, I love my wife. I have a great wife. She's a good wife. But according to God, in heaven, there'll be no marriage nor given to marriage. So apparently, he thinks that the whole marriage companion thing, at least in heaven, is not needed. Some people think they would and have, and most everybody in this room have sold their soul for a mate. That's my soul mate. And you would sell your soul for it. Apparently, God doesn't think that highly of it. But then he says, if you find a wife, you find a good thing. Now again, that's in context. That's in context to where you are in life. What's God's perspective on this? One thing, it's, and I'm going everywhere with this, but I'm proving some point. For one thing, it says, it doesn't say, if you find a woman, you find a good thing. It says, if you find a wife. Can I just tell you, there ain't many wives walking around out there today. We're not even teaching girls how to be wives. I mean, you can read Proverbs 31 and find out what a wife looks like. Doesn't say when you find a piece of tail, you find a good thing. So this is all perspective. We have to stop thinking in terms of good and bad, and only think that God is right. If you want to understand God and you want to walk this Christian life, you have to have blind faith, not see. See, let me just say this. If you see it, then it's already diluted. It's already let me ask you this. I'm not much of a reader. How many people like to read books or read? Okay. Have you ever read, because I've always heard this, but I've never, especially, and I don't read novels or fictions or anything like that. But have you ever, because I've heard this mostly, people who have read a book and then they say, and then there's a movie made about the book. And they always say, the movie was never as good as the book. Am I right? All right. The movie is what is manifest. The book is what is unseen. Now, to a certain extent, because the book is, the actual movie is in your mind. It's what you're imagining as you're reading the book. And your imagination, like, words cannot describe, right? So words can't describe the imagination, but then even now you try to make a movie about the words, and it always gets diluted. Do you see what I'm saying? It's always is less than what it was in its original form. And what would that form be? That form would be a thought form or a spirit form. Right? Because even within the author, there is this book, there is this story, there is this thing it's contained. Now, the author, to even write the book, and the book, if you've read it, is better than the movie. But imagine now the author has to almost dumb down what he's seeing, select the right words, and describe it in a certain way, and he struggles to even describe with words, with his language, what he's actually seeing in his spirit, in his heart, and in his mind. You understand what I'm saying? But he does, and so he writes it, and then a reader reads it, and then a reader imagines. But it may not be the exact imagination that the author had, because there can be some stuff that gets lost in translation. So where is the real power? Where is the unpolluted power of it all? The most purest form. It's like unseen. It's in the heart of the author. And by the time it's seen, even just take this room. We're going to have a grand opening here, and people that walk in here, oh, this is so nice, and everything like that. Like, yeah, and can I tell you, they're not going to see or know all of the blemishes that I see and I know. Now listen, I'm not happy with the blemishes. But it's in this earthly realm, and nothing's perfect. There's a glass that's got a crack in it on the top there. It's a double pane glass. People are probably not going to notice that. But in the course of bringing this into manifestation, in the building of this and everything, and all the hands, all the imperfect hands, the imperfect craftsmen that have touched things, things are not perfect. But in my mind of what I've envisioned and what I've intended, it's perfect. I wouldn't have any of them. I wouldn't have any blemishes. Okay? So God's intent is always perfection in the end. As it comes through man, it becomes less than. Okay? Now, you'd say, what are you saying? Oh, you're saying that the Bible is not immutable, it's not... No, it is what it is, and it has the power, but the power's not even in the written word. The power is in me connecting with the author. And now me and the author have this connection, and I'm not trying to look at this book through the eyes of my discernment of what's good and what's bad. Because if we're using terms like good and bad, everybody would say it was bad that a perfect man who went around doing good, healing everybody, would be falsely accused and hung on a cross. That's bad. But the author of that story said, it's neither good nor bad in the terms that you're looking at it. It is right. It is not good or bad in the way you judge good and bad as a human. It is right that this perfect one would die. And not just die, suffer and die. It's right. Throw your terms of good and bad out the window, because just that within itself is flawed. Because you're using a human measuring stick, your good and your bad that you put in your scale is broken. Your scale is not right. Because bad can be very good with God. Then the first thing you have to do to admit is you don't have God's perspective on it. So God sent a famine into the land in Joseph's day. And then God gave a nightmare to a Pharaoh so that rightness would be done in Joseph's life. That there was a prisoner that needed, and this in all of mankind, man would say this is not right, this is not good, and this is not fair. How can it be fair that a Pharaoh would have a nightmare a prisoner who wasn't even a citizen of that country would interpret the dream about a famine, and this bad thing, this famine that God would send, would be Joseph's ticket from prison to the palace. See, in God's eyes, all of that bad was right. Joseph getting thrown in prison was right. The butler, the butcher, the butler, and the baker that got thrown into prison next to him. One of them was falsely accused and was thrown into prison. So now you've got 3 people in prison, 2 of them are falsely accused. Well, we would say that's not right. We would say, we'll put that in the category of bad. We just don't have God's perspective. That's the first thing we have to admit. But see, if you trust God, and you know that everything He has planned for you in your life is right. I didn't say it was going to look good according to your opinion. I said it's right. And in the end, it'll be the most right thing in your life. And when you get through it, you'll go, I'm all right. We use that term all the time, all right. And very seldom are we all right. But you understand, God is all right all the time. And He does not deal. That's why He slapped down the rich young ruler. Good. You humans, you don't even know what good is. I walk on streets of gold. I know the names of stars. And galaxies. I can be anywhere I want to be, at any time, all the time. My presence can be everywhere. I'm the biggest thing there is, the most powerful thing there is, and yet I can also reduce myself down to fit in the smallest of places if need be. I see things on a grand scale across billions of years. I'm always right. So don't give me these prayers about, oh, I'm suffering, why me? It's not fair. I'm just telling you. And think about it. And do you know why a Joseph would be elevated from a prison to a palace, from a prisoner to a prime minister? Because never once in his whole story when he was being lied upon, falsely accused of rape, beaten by his brothers, sold into slavery. And again, let me even address slavery. People are amazed that in the Bible, God doesn't address slavery. Slavery's been going on in the world before. The black man was not the first slave. I mean, I'm not trying to offend any races or any culture, but if you want to believe that the Middle Eastern people were dark-skinned, then they had slaves. And it very well could be that they enslaved the white people first. Why? That was where the center of power was. I mean, Egypt was the center of power. Trust me, there was no pink Irishman with red hair walking around back in the day. I'm only bringing this up. I'm not trying to create any division in the body of Christ. But what I'm saying is it would seem like God doesn't even really address slavery except to say, you know what, slaves, obey your master. That's not good. Well, God's perspective, going back to, there's things that are in motion, there's rules, the wages of sin is death, okay? It's automatically there, just like all of these other things are automatically there. And in their purest form, see, we're saying, oh, when it manifests, when I see it, it's there. No. It's there long before you ever see it. Because in this fleshly world, this is what I'm saying, like, we are clothed in stupidity. We are clothed in carnality, stupidity. Our languages, God says, are moronic. So what he said, he confused the languages, and he gave out languages, and he said, these are now confused languages, and it's all babble. Again, this is the difference between God and man. As theologians, we want to argue over, the King James Version. Greek and Hebrew. Can I just tell you, get to heaven, you ain't speaking English, you ain't speaking Greek, you ain't speaking Hebrew, you're not speaking any of that. Why? Because it's all moronic. I'm just saying, the things that we attribute to God and not God, and the things that we say are good, and the things that we say are bad, what we have to do is we have to have a trust, a blind trust in God that He's always right. So if He says, get away from that girl, and let me give you 10 reasons why she is good. I'm not here to debate whether or not this person is good on a human scale. I'm here to tell you, do you trust me Your life will be wrong in the eyes of the author if you don't get away. I was talking to, I'm not going to say who it was. I was talking to a young lady who's very in tune with the Lord, and she's got a call of God on her life, and she's used by God. But she's single. And a guy came into her life, and it was the brother or son or nephew of one of an even more revered person and minister in her life, like a spiritual mother figure. And this guy pops up on the scene in church, and he just, everything about him is wonderful. And she had said, you know, God, I only want what you want. But I'm telling you right now, God, like she had gotten to a point, months, maybe a year, I don't know how long, into this. And she told God, she said, listen, if he's not for me, you have to tell me now. You have to remove him, do something, whatever I need to know, because I'm about to fall in love, move forward, and I know how I am. You know, I'm becoming very, very super focused here on this guy and this relationship. And so she had this prayer to God, if he's not right in your eye, you gotta, because I'm getting to the point where I won't be able to pull myself out of this. The next day, he vanished. Like every day in the life, oh, lovey, and in the church, serving in the church, da, da, da. Next day, gone. Oh, come to find out, he's married to another woman up in New York State. And his precious spiritual aunt didn't even know anything about it. If you allow God to be right, now, and in God's equation, he's already told you, listen, take up your cross. It is the right thing to do. Let them pull out your beard. Let them spit in your face. Let them put a crown of thorns on your head. Let them nail nails into your hands and into your feet. And surrender yourself to it. But it's not fair. It's not good. That's not comfortable. What about me? They're the ones who's wrong. God would say this to you, I have a right plan. My plan is right. My plan is the only plan that's right. And the more you use your brain and the more you use your perspective, the more likely you are you're going to screw this thing up. The more you pull out your earthly measuring stick, ow, that hurts. God's like, I don't freaking care about the flesh. Jordan Peterson has been trending for about 2 years now. You don't know who he is. He's a psychiatrist, psychologist, a super intelligent, super well-versed, very articulate, could argue and debate, and he's just kind of, he's like studied the psyche of man and the way man interacts with other men, culturally, and then even where probably one of the most articulate guys on who could talk about how the heart of man interacts with the outside world and why we do what we do. And then the spirit of man, which is even deeper than that, why does it long for, and what is our connection to culture and divinity? And why do almost all cultures have some form of worship and some form of divinity? Doesn't matter if you're from Haiti and you dabble in the black arts and voodoo or whatever. What is in the heart of man, the spirit of man, that we're trying to even connect with supernatural, and how does all of this interface and work? Probably one of the greatest voices today that can kind of dissect all of that stuff. And he's recently come in to be born again. But to listen to him explain it, and is that this guy grasps that suffering, and again, it goes back to even his studies before, is that suffering is not a bad thing. Death is not a bad thing. Elimination is not a bad thing. Being reduced is not a bad thing. Reduction, decreasing is not a bad thing. See, we always think more is better and less is bad. See, you're thinking good and bad, you're not thinking what's right. Elimination, death, all of that stuff is what's right in the cycle of life. If all you did was eat Twinkies and eat stuff, let me even say this, eat stuff that was pleasurable for you to eat, and if you didn't have a butthole to eliminate that stuff, it would be very, very bad. Until your Twinkie would pop. And that elimination stinks. And we would say, that's bad. But until you've had a good crap, I mean, it's one of the finer things in life, right there. It's perspective. It's perspective. Listen, I throw that out there, but you understand what is good and what is bad is. There's a lot of stuff that we would say is bad that is like super necessary. Super necessary. Forest fires, necessary. Do they burn down people's houses? Do they displace things? Do little squirrels die in them? Yeah. But there's certain pine trees, listen, there's certain pine trees that when they drop their pine cones, the seeds will never go into the ground because the cone only, the seed's actually in the cone, but the cone only opens up under extreme heat. And the sun and the earth would never get that hot. Only fire will open that cone. And so in order for that pine tree to continue to exist, at some point fire has to come to the forest. Those cones open up, the seeds fall out of the cone, and now more trees can grow. It's not good, it's not bad, it's right. It's right by the rules that exist. And again, so God functions within these rules. He looks out over 1 billion years and says, this is so right. This is so right that Joseph's brothers would take him out of his father's house and sell him into captivity where he would be shipped as a slave to another country. That is right. If it was you or me, we'd be kicking and screaming the whole time. We'd be complaining the whole time. This isn't right. This isn't fair. The whole way. And you know what? We would not be fit for the palace. But it was because all of that could happen to him. Then he could go to Potiphar's house. Then he could rise there. Then he could be falsely accused there. And then go into a prison, not complain, not do this, not do this and that. That he just, okay, God, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. I'm going to maintain my integrity. I'm going to still have a good spirit. Why can I have a good spirit? Why can I have a sweet spirit? Why can I not be bitter? Why can I not be angry? Why can I not be negative and complaining? Why? Because if God's right, then this is all going to work for good. Plus, if I die in prison, can I just tell you that? My experience does not, get this through our heads, my experience does not determine whether God is right. Our problem is, you want to know the truth, when we complain about negative things, we're saying God isn't right. No. You could say, no, I'm saying you're not right. You did it. She did it to me. Okay, listen, I'm included in this. My wife and I have been having friction the last, few days, ever since we came back from Myrtle Beach. Like, Myrtle Beach was great. Petersburg, not so much. Something in the air. I could fight and be bitter and angry and poke and complain about this and this and this and this and this. See, but that's not the right perspective. The right perspective is I'm supposed to lay down my life for her. And the right perspective is overall, when I get out of the today, right now, I didn't like that. That hurt, and how could you do that to me? And when I get out of that and I come up to a higher level, I'd say, you know what? I can choose to get what I want, and I can choose comfort and convenience and happiness, and this makes me happy, and I don't care if it makes you miserable. I'm happy. And I could ruin the higher thing, which is our marriage. And everything we built. And everything that we've got going on in the past, and everything that we'll do in the future. And some of us, we don't understand that we're so focused on the now, this isn't right, and this is uncomfortable, and I don't like this, and I'm hot, and I'm cold, and I'm this, and I'm that, and I'm But is it right that you're in the will of God? Is it right that you're in this church? Is it right that this is your pastor? Then if it is, then it doesn't matter if you want to say that's bad, that's good. You don't think God doesn't know? That pastor is going to correct you. That pastor is going to And we didn't say that in the eyes of man that pastor was perfect. Never said that. What we said is in the plan of God, this is right. In the plan of God, this is right. And in most cases, the inconvenience and the negative and the discomfort and the reduction, it is God's will. Going back to the original question, how could the Bible say God sent a famine? How could the Bible say God sent an evil spirit? Why? Because in the progression, it was what was right. Now, when you read the end of the story, you'll go, oh, yeah. Joseph ended up being prime minister of all of Egypt. He ended up saving his family, and the dream that he had as a little boy came exactly true. In the meantime, there was all this suffering. God's like, I'm right. So Miles Monroe said the reason why God can always be right is because God never has a crisis. You have a crisis. God never has a crisis. And when you think you have a crisis, it's probably because you're not seeing it from God's perspective. You might have a crisis with your money. You might have a crisis with your relationship. You might have a crisis with this, but then you got to ask God, God, what are you? Show me what you're trying to show me. And he might just be saying, listen, I'm reducing you because you're too soft. I'm reducing you. I'm coming at you this way because you have too much pride in you. And where I want to take you and how I want to elevate you in the plan that I have for your life, you're not going to be maximized and you're not going to be the gift. And once I reveal you and give you out, you've got to learn these lessons. And your flesh is hindering you. And so, again, God doesn't mind. So Jordan Peterson is being interviewed by this Sean somebody. And he is a Navy SEAL on this podcast. And so Jordan Peterson turns it around and says, well, you were a Navy SEAL. You know what Navy SEALs have to go through. It's not that you're volunteering for pure torture. Torture. This is what you're doing. You're volunteering to be tortured. Flat out. Who would do that? What is the result of that torture? Oh, you become elite. You become the best of the best. And then there's another motivation is that you understand the greater cause and you're willing to lay down your life for your country, for your team, and you're equipped like no one else has ever been equipped to do battle and win. I don't like it. My latte was lukewarm. I asked for 2 shots and only got 1. They messed up my order. The pastor asked me to stay and do some extra things at the church. And he knows it's a perfect day. And I wanted to go do the... It's not. God is right. He said, take up your cross and follow me. And then, this was before he went on the cross, and then he showed them. Like those weren't just words. He was walking around with the disciples one day, and he says, you know what? If any man wants to follow me, let him take up his cross. Oh, but we all sit here and we go to our churches and we're like, yeah, I love Jesus. But they took up the coffee before I had a chance to get it. I was late because we had to stop and wait at that hotel, and that girl was late and getting on the van. And then when I get to church, the coffee and the donuts are already gone. Oh, you're a believer in Jesus, are you? You're a follower of Christ, are you? Jesus asks you to, I'm just saying, yes, he's going to ask you to, I can't smoke. But everybody else gets to. Please. Pastor corrected me about being with this individual or that individual. Pastor asked me to stop gambling or stop, whatever. Come on. Are you a follower of Christ? He said, take up your cross. You might not have known what that looked like when I said it out my mouth, but I'm about to go get crucified and you can watch it all play out. I don't think asking you to put your clothes away is equivalent to having the beer dripped out your face, but you're going to complain about it. You're going to bitch and moan about it? Really, follower of Christ? You're going to send somebody else to do your work because it's hot or it's tired or you already lifted 3 things and they're sitting back there or whatever. It still does not raise itself to the level of being crucified on a cross. Follower of Christ that you are, I don't think you understood what you were volunteering for. Let any man who comes after me take up his cross, because I'm going the way of the cross. It's going to be a road that is going to be filled with the flesh is going to suffer. There will not be comfort in this. I didn't want Jesus to return because I hadn't got laid yet. I was afraid the rapture was going to happen before I got to have sex. So I'm just telling you, this is how we think. I'll throw it out there. This is how selfish we are in the flesh. That we don't want the will of God to happen because we want what we want. I want a companion. I want this. I want that. Why? It's your flesh. This flesh is going to melt off you just like your automobile is going to disintegrate, just like your home is going to disintegrate, just like everything around you is going to burn up. And if God needs to elevate you, and when I say you, it is not your flesh. It is the you that was created in the image of God, that is a spirit, that is the most pure, powerful thing. You were recreated in the spirit. Now let God have his work. Listen, Christians should be like Navy SEALs compared to the rest of the world. Why? Because we volunteered to be tortured. Because we knew that in the end of that, we would be the victors. We would be big. We would be strong. We would be able to rescue. We would be able to do what other people can't do. We could look danger in the face. We could look devils in the face. We could look suffering in the face and say, I'm not scared. But this is how we walk around. Not fair. And it's not right. And it's not good. The devil's beating up on me. No, maybe God's trying to send you through Navy SEAL training. Maybe God, you signed up to be put on the cross and you just keep wiggling and squirming off of it. Running around like you can't catch me. We dash into church. Hey, I'm a Christian. Oh, here comes that crucifier with the cross and the nail. Better get out of here before they catch me. See you in church next week. And that's why we want to go to churches that only have half an hour long services, 45-minute services, because God forbid we're there too long, we might get crucified. And he told you up front. Told you up front. And the reason why most people will never sign up for it, never go in for it, is because they have the fear of losing. The fear of losing their comfort. Their scales are so broken by materialism and weighted down. God says, look at the list of things that God hates. There's like 7 or 8 things that God hates, it says in the Bible. I hate. One of them is an unjust scale. The devil, the merchant of death, and the merchant of materialism, and the merchant of comfort and pleasure and ease and recreation, has been putting its finger on your scale, telling you this matters. This is valuable. And giving you a false weight. Selling you a bill of goods. And we're like, yeah, ooh, that's valuable. And then the pastor comes and says, give 10% to the church. My God! I won't be able to get my apartment and my boat payment and my car and my this and my vape. I guess vaping is out now and smoking is out and buying Monster drinks is out. Really? I mean, you can't give to the church. The church, an institution that's spiritual, eternal, helping the community, because you might miss out on vaping or smoking or drinking a Monster drink or going here or going there or getting the latest whatever's trending. You won't be able to go to Lids, or you won't be able to go to the Foot Locker and get the latest LeBron or the latest Air Jordan or whatever. Seriously? Christian? You ain't no Navy SEAL, and you haven't taken up the cross. You don't even know what it means. If we're all being honest, we've invited God into our life because we want Him to make our 70 years on this earth better for us. But just being honest. And our whole mind is set on this 70 years of earth, and it's set on us. And we're not serving God. We've come to God to get acquainted with Him, so maybe He'll answer our prayers and make our life better. Do you understand what that is? Do you understand the mindset of that? That's like picking somebody out in the bar and going, ooh, they've got a lot of money. Ooh, they're powerful. They're influential. Let me buddy up to them and see if just by rubbing shoulders with them, I can become friends with them, and then they'll be able to open doors for me and all this and that. And the intent of that whole approach is what? Total selfishness. This is why your unselfishness is proved by your suffering. He said, God's saying, I don't need you to feed me. But what I need you to do is prove that you're not cozying up to me so you can get a blessing from me. Why don't you do this? Why don't you go feed the poor on your day off? Prove to me you're not cozying up to me for the stuff that I can give you. And how's that going to be? Humble yourself. Go wash the feet of a lesser person. I don't need the food. I don't need your money. But you need to teach your selfish self, and you need to prove to your selfish self you're willing to do this for the greater cause. That guess what? God can look at you and go, you know what? You went through SEAL training. I stripped fear out of you. I reduced your weight by 30 pounds. And now you're a lean, mean fighting machine. You can run farther, jump higher. You went through Hell Week. And now I can deploy you for the greater good of the kingdom. Now, you and me, and now I can give you a headset, and I can put comms on you, and I can speak to you about things that no one else is going to know about. While they're sleeping safely in their bed at night, you're going to go keeping them safe. You're going to do things that will protect and save the next generation, not be selfish. That little girl's watching everything you do, every choice you make. She will make every choice you make because she will think that's the right way to do it. She will get the kind of man you choose. She will get the exact kind of man. She will put the same things in her mouth, in her body, that you put in your body. Moms, dads, all because you don't want to suffer. But see, God knows that just like a Navy SEAL, if I can train you, if I can equip you, if I can get my wisdom in you, then you know what? You're going to make this nation or this world or this environment, this space safer for the next generation. Will you do it? Will you think of something more than yourself? And right now, all of us, we don't. All we think, whatever age we are, we just think, oh, I'm going to be that. Some of us are a little older. We know that, guess what? We're not going to be 20 forever. And we need to make decisions. And you're here to see the mistakes of the past and go, golly, yeah. There's a saying, the hard road gets easier, the easy road gets harder. And the truth is that we've all been choosing the easy road, and we've ended up here, and God's coming and saying, all right, are you going to do this? Like, I'm giving you the opportunity. Because the wages of sin is death. Is death. And you cannot choose sin and then come and expect life to come out of it. And don't even come asking for grace and mercy. I'm just telling you. Like, there's a lot of us right here that the whole grace and mercy thing, it's like we've premeditated that. Well, God's love, and I'll get it right later. Better be careful, I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you, because the wages of sin is death. And there's death that happens instantaneously. Instantaneously. You really think God is that stupid that you're going to play him? That you're going to say, well, God's a God of grace and mercy. I'm going to do what I want today, and then I'll ask him for grace and mercy later. He don't play like that. He don't play like that. Not when you premeditate it. And can I tell you, so many choices we make, we like to say we don't know, but we know. We like to say we don't know, but we know. You can tell the pastor, oh, I didn't know. You know. Don't tell me you don't know what's right and what's wrong. And it don't have to be written in the Bible. You know. You absolutely know. I absolutely know. I don't have to have it written in the Bible to say this scenario under these circumstances in this situation. That's what we would like. We would like God to come down and go, well, based upon, I've run the analysis on this man, and based upon my analysis, and da-da-da-da, and here's 10 pros, and here's only 5 cons. The pros outweigh the cons. Go ahead. I've run my analysis. Here you go. And it's that clear. He doesn't have to do that. You know. We almost always know what's right. And then you know what we do? We get into a debate, and we pull out our broken scales, and then we get into a debate with God about good and bad. Throw your scales away. God is right all the time. Do it the way he says. Doesn't matter if it hurts your flesh. He told you up front it was going to hurt your flesh. He just told you straight up front. It's going to hurt your flesh. But guess what? That's the best thing for you. You'll come out stronger, better, wiser, in the end, pure. In the end, righteous. You'll be shining. You'll be anointed. You'll have the glory of God on you. That's what's right. Didn't say it was easy. Didn't say it was comfortable. Never said it was going to be good in the eyes of your broken scales. But God is always right. Always right. All right.